Hi, everybody. Lynn Louise Wonders here. I'm here with Rachel Altvader, and she is Dr. Rachel Altvader, and she is going to be talking with us a little bit today about this whole transition to telehealth. She wrote her dissertation on technology and play therapy. She knows her stuff, and she also is a fellow fan and passionate fan on the subject of self-care for us as therapists. So Rachel, I would love it if you would just talk to everybody a little bit about first the topic of transitioning from in-person therapy to online therapy, because some people are having a really easy time with it and some people are struggling. And I feel like you probably have some perspective on what's going on there and maybe some words of wisdom for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to start off by saying everyone's experience is unique. So it's really, really hard not to compare in general. Us as human beings, we tend to compare ourselves to one another. And, so that is something that is, I think, of primary importance, that your situation, your experience is unique and that you don't have to be where some of your colleagues are. So something that you had even actually mentioned in one of your practice trainings is to not, or I think it was either you or Jen Taylor, someone wonderful had mentioned, don't compare your practice, your play therapy practice to other people's practices. So I think first and foremost, just remember that as we're going into this, and that different clients are going to respond in different ways. And I'll get into that in a minute, but hold that throughout this whole watching all of this. So first and foremost, I actually already had a teletherapy day in my schedule. I was working with teenagers and adults through teletherapy, not children, until the COVID crisis. So I felt comfortable transitioning myself to the teletherapy platform. And I think some people who have some experience also felt comfortable. And even though I felt comfortable, it is still so incredibly challenging. It is draining. It is a different way of connecting. So, all that everyone is feeling and holding on to, not just our own emotions and our clients' emotions, but navigating this new platform is very challenging. So again, just hold on to that as well. There's nothing wrong with anyone who has a full practice or not a full practice. But yeah, so personally, it was a little bit easier for me to transition to online. And also I was incorporating technology in sessions already. So I think for my clients, it was a smoother transition because they were used to engaging in digital tools. I have a tablet that I use in my playroom. I usually keep it aside, like I don't have it out and about just because it's fragile, but I was already incorporating some different apps and YouTube videos. And so some of that we just transitioned right over to the teletherapy platform very easily. I do think for me it worked out because that's what we were already doing organically in sessions. I think that if we are making abrupt shifts from things that we were doing and now we're doing something different during a time that is so different is really hard for clients to navigate, and something that is so important that
too, right?
yeah, and therapists
Therapists
absolutely.
aren't used to it. We have to give ourselves a break if that's not something we're used
Yes,
to. Yeah.
completely. And actually that reminds me of some of my dissertation research. I was asking registered play therapists and registered play therapist supervisors what they were noticing in the playroom. And I conducted my research about 4 years ago at this point now. And most people had mentioned that they were incorporating it to some degree, even if it was going online and printing off something from the internet, but they felt very uncomfortable. And that was a commonality. And I've trained over the years since then, and that's a consistent commonality with incorporating technology in a face-to-face session.
Yeah.
So I know how uncomfortable so many people are. And that's actually what drove me to do that video, the introduction to teleplay therapy, because I feel comfortable and I know that a lot of people don't. And I want us all to connect and to feel like we can lean on one another and use our levels of expertise to help each other out. And I've said this to you, and I'm going to continue to say this to you. Thank you, Lynn, for doing all that you do for so many people too. It's
Oh, thank you.
imperative.
And I want to mention real quick, I'm going to interrupt you for just a second, because for those of you who are watching this video, you may not know what Rachel was referring to, but she has an incredible free training video, and I'm going to link it below wherever this is going to be posted. I'll probably lift this up to YouTube and have it underneath. So I just want to mention that if you were wondering, I'm going to make sure that you've got that information. Mm.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that it's so important that we all are able to have the training, but then it's tough because right now the training isn't really there. That is something that my dissertation research also showed, that having training in incorporating technology into play therapy in general, this isn't teletherapy specific, but it's play therapy in general, is to have more trainings. And so that's why I've been providing more trainings as well, because again, we want to have comfort and competence.
Right.
So I think this is foundational. I just want to make sure to tell everyone that. Now, in terms of transitioning people over to the teletherapy platform, some clients are going to be on board. Some clients, I mean, this is a child's world, a teenager's world, really everyone's world. I mean, we're also immersed in technology, especially right now. We're all connecting and communicating heavily via technology. And we were already doing it before, but I think even more so now. Everyone's been forced to be in this online space together.
Yeah.
And I think, it's so wonderful to be able to meet children here because this is where they are. They're so comfortable and they love to show us around. I actually was just playing Minecraft with a client on Friday and they told me exactly what to do. And I was trying to have some non-directive. Well, what'd you like? No, you choose. I'm like, oh, you know what? They're trying to teach me. I will go with it.
Yeah.
And it was so cool just to navigate their world and to learn so much. And they felt so empowered to teach me. And just about that connection, right? I think that right now we all really, really want to have the interventions and to know what we can do. And like so many wonderful seasoned clinicians are reminding all of us that it is so imperative to just be and to really focus on that relationship. And I think a lot of the discomfort first, of course, comes with the platform and incorporating technology. And I also think a big component is just our own fears of a lack of competence and control.
Yeah.
Not saying that we control sessions, but having some sense of control in the therapeutic space. And it's tough when there's a client on the other side of the scream, Freudian slip, screaming, running around,
Right.
hyperactive. It's so tough to navigate that. So I'm hoping to give a little bit of guidance on that too. So with transitioning people over, as I keep trying to come back to that, I know I'm giving little side tips,
Okay.
is, first and foremost, making sure that it's appropriate for your client and it's appropriate for you, we're going to touch base on self-care in a little bit. And first and foremost, we have to make sure that we're in an okay space to be able to give to our clients. I mean, that is an ethical mandate.
Absolutely.
Self-care is so important.
Mhm.
So if, I know that there is so much concern about providing safe holding spaces for clients during this time, finances for those who have businesses and need to pay bills. I mean, I know that there's a lot driving us to move to this teletherapy platform, and taking a moment to pause and just making sure that you are at a place where you can lean on your supports, you can consult, you can supervise, have supervision, receive some training so that you can start to feel more comfortable and you're also taking care of yourself simultaneously. Then you can decide, okay, what client is this going to work with? The hope is that we can try to move over as many clients as possible, especially since so many children and teens are already in this platform outside of sessions. And like I said, it's not going to work for everyone. Some places in the United States, internet connection is spotty, or people don't have the devices at home. When I did my research, I specifically asked about diversity considerations and socioeconomic status, religions. There are some religions where kids are unable to be on digital platforms.
Right.
And so it might just not be appropriate. And if your caseload is primarily comprised of children who don't have these devices and don't have the abilities, then it's not going to work for those clients. It's not going to work for your work. And so that's something to remain mindful of. It really is important to always remain mindful of diversity factors and how that can come into play. Privacy is a huge thing too. At the start of every session with clients, I make sure to talk about privacy with them and what is going to keep this space as private as possible when they have, their siblings running around, or they're meeting in the living room and their family is wandering around, trying to find that space. But some houses don't have that ability. There are some children who have to share rooms with, a sibling, numerous siblings. Some people live in like a one room condo or space. It's just not going to be conducive, or the space isn't conducive for the therapy session. So again, keeping that in mind.
Let me ask
And
you a
you know,
question. Can
yeah.
I jump in real quick? So something just occurred to me. We're in a field, the mental health arena is one that is, thankfully regulated in terms of, having codes of ethics for the various sub um, professions. And, we are trained from grad school to take that very seriously as we
Hmm.
should, right? And, of course, we have HIPAA, we have laws. I mean, all of this, we, as a profession, we take this very seriously. There are other professions that don't have that,
Yes.
but we do. And it seems like as I'm listening to you, some of that structure that we're so used to leaning into or leaning on is kind of being challenged. And so it kind of puts us in I hate to even use the word, but it's sort of like a triage situation where we have to kind of just prioritize what's most
Yeah.
important. So what I'm hearing you talk about is the privacy thing that can be an issue. Of course, the sensitivity to access based on, cultural and religious diversity and all of that. Um, Am I hearing you say that if we have to prioritize, obviously we want to do the best we can to make sure that everything is insured. But
Yes.
in the case where we can't have the ideal private situation, would you say that it's more important to maintain the continuity of care in terms of at least the connection with the clients, that they don't lose that over letting that lapse because we don't have perfect privacy? Do you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yes. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I do have clients that I'm even working with now that they are in the living room, and, they're aware that people are going to be walking by, and that does alter what we're doing, but maintaining that connection and that consistency, that normalcy is so important. Routines, structure, we know this, working with kids,
Yeah,
they need all of that. And
right.
so they're not having that right now. Families are trying to have a new norm, a new schedule, right? So maybe some are starting to implement more of that in the home, but they don't have their normal school schedule and extracurriculars. So maintaining a sense of normalcy and that connection and that therapeutic support is of primary importance. Also important to simultaneously consider all the other options and taking it on a case by case basis. Um, and even if it's a quick phone check-in, that might not be a billable service, we'll say, but still being able to reach out to your clients just to check in and make sure that they're okay, that you're thinking about them, sending them something maybe to, work on to process their feelings or their experiences could be helpful as well. But yeah, I think maintaining that continuity of care is so important. And I think the more that people are able to feel more comfortable with the platforms and with the space adjustments
Mhm.
and with just altering the in-person practice and modifying it in a way that is similar, yet of course a little different on the teletherapy platform, it probably can help ease people more into the process and be more comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that just yeah. So I wanted to kind of switch gears a little bit and talk about self-care, because we know we hear that word a lot. We know it's an ethical obligation, as you said, it's really a mandate.
yeah.
But I still feel like for a lot of therapists, it can feel sort of like a nebulous concept
Yeah.
instead of something that's really like concrete and direct. And I'm trying to get as many people talking about this as possible so we can share ideas for what does self-care look like at this time. Because as I was explaining to somebody else the other day, we are going through what our clients are going through or some version of it all at the same time with this
Hmm.
anticipatory anxiety that's sort of global, because we don't know exactly what's going to happen. It's not like an event has happened and we can now all grieve together. We're still going through it. So
Yeah.
we as human beings have our own, some level, I would think everybody has some level of anxiety about this. I mean,
Yeah. I
um,
would think so.
so what would you have to say to therapists in order to help them in a really, kind of a concrete, practical way as to how they can ensure that they are attending to self-care in this particular circumstance with regard to being a therapist?
The first thing that I think is important to just remember is Maslow's hierarchy of need.
Hmm.
And you're right, we're in the middle of a global pandemic and we are on fight, flight, or freeze mode right now.
Yeah.
And so we want to feel that sense of love and belongingness. We want to be able to connect one another. We want to try to maintain our own routines and have a new, normal. And first and foremost, we have to feel safe physically, emotionally, mentally. And so that is a place to start. asking yourself, where am I mentally?
Yeah.
Where am I physically? Where am I emotionally? What do I need in any of those? And even through connections socially, right? I think socially should be added in there too. What is going well in each of those aspects and what is not going well in each of those aspects? And how can I adjust so I'm giving myself more of what I need for my mind, body, and spirit? And I think that's a place to start. Because I think a lot of times we like to grab onto different ideas, right? Like, oh, I'm going to try that. I'm going to try that. So helpful. And I think that is important to continue to occur. And also like reflect on it. Think
Yeah.
about what do you default to when you are needing some additional support for yourself? Do you lounge on the couch and watch trash TV, as I like to call it, mindless TV? Do
Mhm.
you connect more with your friends, your loved ones? Do you go for nature walks? Do you listen to calming music? What do you do already, right? So it's kind of like the whole therapy situation. We're trying to implement as much as we normally do into this time. But I think because our amygdalas are running wild right now, it's very tough for us to center ourselves and remember what has already worked for us, what has already worked for our clients, and to start there. So that's a great place to start. I also think it's imperative for us to really feel our feelings. We as therapists stress that. And it's so important to move it through. I always like to say that we're all vessels for human emotions, that
Yeah.
we're moving them through. And so if we're not engaging in self-care, we're not effectively moving them through our body. And I've read somewhere, I wouldn't be surprised if it was from you, but I've read somewhere that emotions are just energy in motion. And I know we talked about that previously anyway, but we have to move those emotions through. For me, crying is so cathartic. I immediately feel relief, and I am able to actually move the energy out. And as you said, and as I've read before, cortisol is released. Stress hormone is released in our tears, so that helps. Some people may not want to cry, may not be able to cry for a variety of reasons, and that's not something that you have to do if that's not what works for you. But finding some type of release activity or exercise or moment. I also always like to talk to clients about this, and I think this is important to also just remind everyone now with coping skills. I usually like to have like the category of avoidant coping skills and cathartic coping skills. Avoidant coping skills are the ones that get us to a place of emotional safety. They're not bad coping skills. Taking a nap, taking a shower, watching mindless TV. Sometimes we have to de-escalate our intense emotions to be able to get to a place of emotional safety, and then we can face things head on. But if we aren't feeling safe, our amygdala is telling our body we need to fight, flight, or freeze right now, then engaging in self-care or doing other things is just not going to be as helpful. So releasing some of those emotions through maybe some avoidant techniques could be helpful. Or going right to the cathartic techniques, being able to really feel your feelings, journaling, connecting with friends, the things that we teach our clients.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime you use an avoidant technique, though, you always have to come back and use a cathartic technique.
Yeah.
Because simply taking a nap, sure, while that may de-escalate the emotions, then those feelings are still in your body, and they're still in your mind, and they're still going to continue to build up. So just making sure that you release when you can in a way that's healthy for your mind and body. That's kind of my little nuggets of wisdom, which have actually come from you and funneled through me. So thank you for all that you teach on self-care, because it has helped me tremendously. And I think that it's important for us to continue to help each other, remind each other how important self-care is.
Absolutely, we do. I need people to remind me, even though I've been teaching this for a long time. My colleagues will say, okay, it's time for you to step away from the computer, go take a walk. And this morning I had a lot of pent up, frustration, and of course fight kind of energy, and I needed to go for a brisk walk. And just for me, it was verbalizing to my husband while I walked really quickly. So I'm getting bilateral stimulation, I'm feeling my feelings, I'm venting a little bit. I know that's not always a great thing to do, but in this case it did actually help me to get regulated, so then I could think more clearly. Because when you're all worked up, it's hard to use your prefrontal cortex.
Yes.
But what I'm still hearing something very sweet in a thread, and everything you're saying is that we need to be gentle with ourselves.
I always say that. I always say that. We
Yeah,
do.
I can feel it. You haven't actually said those words, but that's what I'm hearing you say is like we need to be gentle with ourselves and gentle with each other.
Yeah.
Even though we might snap every once in a while, we've got to remember that we're all going through something right now and we're feeling it in different ways.
Yeah.
But as we're evaluating our own self care, there's a gentleness to what you're saying is like, let's try to be soft with this process of reflection.
Yeah.
And if we need to, when you called it avoidant, I would call those distraction activities
Yeah.
because it's like distracting temporarily, like you said, to kind of just get a break, let the nervous system
Yeah.
settle down, and then come back to what needs to be addressed. But
I
it's a
like that.
gentle process. Do you want to talk a little bit more about being soft with yourself?
I always say that. It's funny. I had a client ask me once, what is one piece of advice that you can give to me to feel better? And I said, be gentle with yourself. That is the best thing that you can do. It's hard. It might be helpful to do some self-compassion exercises. I
Mhm.
always like to have people look at the criticizer, the criticized, and becoming a self-compassionate observer, reflecting on the negative messages, the harmful messages that we give to ourselves on a daily basis. And then that's usually the loudest. So letting that come out first, but then being able to move into the criticized and having that part of yourself have a voice, being able to express the pain that you're feeling that maybe you're not able to express and feel so freely. And then the self-compassionate observer meshes both of them together, because while the critic is the loudest and maybe the most harsh, it is trying to tell us something, right?
Right.
It is signaling something. So being more gentle in the process of listening to ourselves and what it is that we are being hard on ourselves about, so we can either modify if that's what's needed, or just allow ourselves to be in this moment and not place these expectations on ourselves that ultimately make us feel guilty or negative about ourselves.
That's so powerful. Thank you so much. And thank you for
Absolutely.
being such a beautiful mirror and for being a guide and for modeling how important it is to find balance. I just want to share that I had invited you to work with me on a project a while back before all this happened. And I was so impressed. You circled back and you said, I really would love to do this with you, but I'm realizing that I've got enough on my plate right now and I'm going to need
Yeah.
to wait on this. I was like, that's such a great example that you're setting. So
Work in progress.
I love that you caught yourself and you were able to say that. And it was a very honoring for me to be able to receive that and go, thank you. Thank you for setting a boundary for protecting your energy and your time. And that's something I think all of us need to be careful to do at this time.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for this time together.
Absolutely. Thank you. This is so nice.
Good to
So nice.
see you.